I've covered a number of Dr. Berg's videos, but considering the man has hundreds of videos covering an incredible breadth of topics, I don't see why we shouldn't cover one more. So, in this video, I'm going to explain the science behind Dr. Berg's plan for how to implement an intermittent fasting protocol for serious weight loss. Essentially, he's describing how to transition from a typical style of eating to intermittent fasting and why that produces such drastic weight loss. Okay, let's hear him out.
Hey guys, Dr. Berg here. In this video, we're going to share with you the power of intermittent fasting, okay? Now, intermittent fasting is a tool. It's not a diet. It doesn't tell you what to eat. It's a pattern of eating, okay? It's a pattern of eating and not eating. It's not about cutting calories. It's just changing when you eat and when you don't eat. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So why would you want to do this anyway? Because it is one, if not the most important factors in weight loss. Okay, let's talk about why. Because it triggers two main hormones in your body, the most powerful ones. One is growth hormone, which is anti-aging, and the most powerful fat-burning hormone. There are 6 fat-burning hormones. Growth hormone is the most powerful fat-burning hormone to protect your muscles, to build lean body mass, and also just to lose actual fat, okay? And then you have insulin. Insulin is also a very powerful hormone in that it actually will help you store fat if you want to gain weight, which you don't want to do that. You want to lose weight. But here's the thing, in the presence of insulin, you cannot lose weight. It's such a dominating hormone, it will block growth hormone. So it's the hormone that makes you fat. It's the hormone that gives you the gut. If you see someone with a fat gut, they have too much insulin.
To begin, he's introducing why intermittent fasting has all these benefits, and he mentions growth hormone and insulin. Growth hormone, like he mentioned, is related to fat loss and does increase when we're fasting. It is one of several hormones that are changed with fasting and fat loss, and I would easily argue that there are more than 6, from growth hormone, cortisol, epinephrine, leptin, peptide YY, glucagon, ghrelin, thyroxine, and others, but I'm nitpicking, I confess. So ultimately, he's right. Growth hormone is a powerful hormone. However, then he turns his attention to insulin and marks it, as many people do, as a fat storage hormone. That's correct, but it's often explained incorrectly. Dr. Berg also mentions that you cannot lose fat if insulin is high, and while that's generally true, it sort of implies that you can lose fat if insulin is low, and that is not always true. I'd highly recommend my series on a little-known protein called ASP as one example, but I digress. Overall, he's right.
So these are the 2 powerful hormones that you're going to influence. Now, let's look at what's happening. This tool or technique can really heal insulin resistance, where you have the pancreas pumping out way more insulin than you need. 5 to 7 times, because what happens when you have too much insulin, the cells start blocking it, and then your body doesn't get the return communication. So it's like talking to your child and they have earplugs. You're going to increase your volume because the person's ignoring you. There's no two-way communication. So if the pancreas doesn't get the feedback that the insulin is connecting, it sends more insulin through the channel. So you have a situation where you have resistance of insulin, it's not working. Low insulin in the cell, low glucose, but then you have high amounts of insulin in other places, which is very destructive, causes prediabetes, creates a lot of problems, okay?
Dr. Berg then gets into an explanation of why high insulin is a destructive scenario. He indicates that the pancreas continuously produces insulin because the peripheral tissues aren't responding to it anymore. So the pancreas keeps getting a signal to keep dumping insulin into the blood. This is mostly correct, except the feedback onto the pancreas is blood sugar, as the insulin-resistant peripheral tissues do not respond to insulin. So the tissues take up less sugar from the blood, keeping it in the blood, which feedbacks onto the pancreas, making it release more insulin. This is a simplistic explanation in its own right, but the bottom line is that Dr. Berg is right here too.
So what we want to do is we want to start where you're at and then graduate this way over time. It's kind of like there's different levels of intermittent fasting, from not intermittent fasting to some serious fat burning over here. So let's say you start with 5 meals a day or 6 meals a day. You have breakfast, lunch, snacks. Some people do breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, right? That's a lot of people that do that. The principle of intermittent fasting hormonally is that every time you eat, you spike insulin. See, people have thought that only when you eat carbohydrates you spike insulin. No, no, no. Eating in general will increase insulin, regardless of what you eat.
Briefly, I wanted to interject because many people, to Dr. Berg's point, think that only carbohydrates raise insulin levels. And while it is true that they raise insulin the most, fats and proteins also promote insulin secretion, but to a lesser degree.
Even a snack, even if it's healthy. So we have a situation where this person's spiking insulin all day long. Our bodies are not designed to eat and graze all day long. So we want to switch to 3 meals a day with no snacks, okay? So that's the first step. 3 meals a day, no snacking. The ability to go from one meal to the next without being hungry involves eating more fat, okay? So you have to add more fat to that meal. I'm going to put some links down what to eat, but this video is not about what to eat, it's about the pattern. So you get 3 meals here, and then if you want to take it to the next level and burn even more fat, you want to do a pattern of 16 to 8. 16 hours of fasting, an 8-hour window of eating, okay? So let's say you get up in the morning and you're not hungry. Well, don't eat. Wait until you're hungry. The ideal situation is to go 4 hours. When you wake up, at least 4 hours before you eat the first meal. So let's say you eat at 10 o'clock, okay, in the morning. So, and you got up at 6. So that means that your last meal is going to be at 6 o'clock at night. So you have an 8-hour window. Where this, you might get up and eat at 8, and you might eat at 8 at night. So you really haven't given enough fasting. A little bit in between, but not. The real power of intermittent fasting is through the night and in the morning. And actually, at nighttime, when you're sleeping, and then in the morning. That's when you really have the uninterrupted, serious fat burning. Not necessarily as much between the meals, but it is a factor. So that's why we want 16 hours of fasting with this. So we try to keep that window, and you have your 3 meals, okay? Does that make sense? Now, if we want to take it even further and really turn on the fat burning, we want to go to 2 meals, but we want a window of 20 hours of fasting. Do you know what that would do to your waistline, your stomach? So we go for 20 hours fasting and only 4-hour window of eating. So we want to get up and wait until, let's say, 12 o'clock or 1, have the first meal, and then have the next meal 4 hours later. So let's say you eat at 1, and then your next meal is at 5. Okay? So you have 4 hours there where you ate, but now you have 20 hours of serious fat burning. If we then add intermittent exercise to that, high intensity interval training, then it's over. That would be the icing on the cake.
Dr. Berg is getting into the application, how to transition from a typical snacking diet to a stringent intermittent fasting protocol. Honestly, I think all this information is perfectly well laid out and explains a natural progression. I would caution, not that he necessarily says anything on the matter, that you losing weight from this transition has more to do with the eating less overall than the fasting period itself. Meaning, because you are restricting the time that you are allowed to eat, you are front-loading your hunger so that you get to eat more and still lose weight by eating in a smaller, later window. Overall, a pretty good video by Dr. Berg. I certainly haven't agreed with many of his claims in the past, but this one was solid, and I certainly want to be fair in my critique. If you're interested in more on Dr. Berg, then check out my playlist discussing the scientific truth of his videos, or check out my Spotlight series, where I cover more than just Dr. Berg. With that, I'll speak to you then. Bye.